see Mickey and his friends at a brand new theme park coming up next. Where it will be located, we have all the information on the news at 9.
I'm Maribel Aber with your consumer headlines. The Federal Reserve left its key interest rate unchanged yesterday. The Fed warned that tariffs were increasing the risk of both higher unemployment and higher prices. Chairman Jerome Powell said if the tariffs that have already been announced are sustained, they'll also likely cause a slowdown in economic growth. Now, given the uncertainty over trade, the Fed was not expected to cut rates at this meeting. It meets again in June, and Powell yesterday stressed right now officials are still waiting to see how tariffs impact the economy. Nintendo has given its first sales forecast for the new Switch 2 console. The Japanese gaming giant says it expects to sell 15 million units by the end of next March when its fiscal year ends. Now, the Switch 2 goes on sale in June. The console is priced at $450, significantly higher than the original Switch. Pre-sales started last week, and the Switch 2 quickly sold out at most major retailers. And Netflix is making major changes to its homepage. It's a sleek new look that moves the main menu to the middle of the page from its present spot on the left, and content descriptions will be more compact and recommendations more personalized based on browsing and time of day. Now, Netflix will also be testing searches boosted by artificial intelligence, along with a TikTok-like vertical video feed on mobile devices. It's the first major redesign of Netflix homepage since the current one was rolled out almost 12 years ago. Disney is expanding in the Middle East. The entertainment giant plans to open a theme park in Abu Dhabi. The project will be designed by Disney and financed and built by a local company that has built other parks in the region. The new park will be Disney's 7th global location and will boost the company's presence in a major new market. Its theme parks in China and France have boosted other Disney businesses like streaming and movies. I'm Maribel Aber, KPRC2 News.
A quirky new study starring a sea lion with impeccable rhythm shows the viral star outperforming humans when it comes to, get this, headbanging.
Yeah, Jeremy Roth has today's Take a Look at This.
A rhythmically trained sea lion made famous for keeping the beat is back for an encore, and researchers say she's now outperforming humans. Keeping tempo with a musical beat can be tricky for some, whether it's just nodding along or plotting a song.
Not quite my tempo.
But not for Ronin the sea lion. It seems she's a natural. Ronin went viral in 2013 when research
launch of those sweeping tariffs that have rattled consumers, rattled Wall Street, triggered a global trade war. This is President Trump in the Oval Office just a few moments ago. Let's listen in.
Both countries have agreed that the economic security is national security and will be working together as allies to ensure that we have a strong industrial base, appropriate export controls, and protections for key technologies and industries like steel. Steel is a big factor. Both countries will become stronger with steel and things necessary for military. You know, we used to build ships and other things literally at a level that nobody's ever seen, and we haven't. We've eased up, and I would say that the UK certainly eased up, but now we're going to be uneasing both, and we work together. Once again, I want to thank Prime Minister Starmer. He's been terrific for his partnership in this matter, the special relationship and external bond. It's really an external and an internal bond between our two countries will soon be stronger than ever before. And we really do. We have a great relationship. I want to just say that the representatives of UK have been so professional. And it's been an honor doing business with all of them, and in particular the Prime Minister. And I'd like to introduce him now to say a few words. Mr. Prime Minister, please take it away.
All right, there you have Trump
thank
there.
you, Mr. President.
President Trump in the Oval Office just a few moments ago announcing a deal with the United Kingdom, so it would seem. I want to bring in our senior business correspondent, Christine Romans. Christine, again, not a lot of details there, but it does sound like there has been some sort of, if not an agreement, at least the framework of an agreement has been reached with our friends over the pond.
Yeah, I would call this, Craig, definitely the framework of a deal, and the president saying that the details will come into the light in the weeks ahead. But what's important here is that after weeks of uncertainty and escalating trade tensions, this is now moving in the right direction here. The president saying that the UK will allow U.S. goods fast-tracked access through its ports. There will be new market access for things like chemicals and industrial products, which is something the president really wanted. What's interesting from the standpoint of this deal being the first one, this might be among the easier of the deals to do because the U.S. and the UK essentially have a very balanced trading relationship. You know, they buy a lot from us, we buy a lot from them. There aren't big imbalances here the way there are with some other countries. The president also saying this brings the UK into this sort of economic security blanket, this economic alignment with the United States, which is definitely something that business leaders and business owners here would like to hear. The big outstanding issue, though, is still China. You heard the president mention that 2 of his emissaries will be going to Switzerland to talk with Chinese officials this weekend. But that is really the big trade problem that Americans will feel and American businesses are already starting to feel. So no developments on that other than talks this weekend, beginning talks, and this framework of a deal with the UK.
Yeah, Treasury Secretary Besson among those traveling to Geneva to get those talks started. Stand by for me, Christine, if you can. I want to bring in Garrett Hake now, our senior White House correspondent, joining us from the North Lawn. Again, as we watch President Trump in the Oval Office, he appears to have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, on speakerphone, making some comments. We're told that later today we should hear from the Prime Minister as well, his take on this deal that's been announced. But let me bring you in, Garrett, because oftentimes, Garrett, I know that you guys will get a little bit more detail going into a news conference like this, if you will, or maybe some detail after. Can you add any more to what we just heard from the president? Any more details?
Well, Craig, sadly, this is not one of those occasions in which the White House has briefed us about what would be the details of this. Only I was told this morning to focus on what some of what they call non-tariff barriers to trade are between the United Kingdom and the U.S. Things like whether the U.S. allows imports of American beef, for example, or a digital services tax that exists in the United Kingdom on, U.S. digital products. These are the kinds of things that this agreement might be trying to get rid of. As Christine pointed out, I think this is very much an agreement in principle that will be papered over at a later date, but it can't come soon enough for this White House. They have been very keen to show some kind of progress after this month since what the president called Liberation Day, in which he slapped tariffs on essentially every country around the globe. They have said that they are negotiating with 18 major economies around the world. This is the first of those to come to any kind of fruition, even if it is a small step towards relief from the tariffs that the president has put in place.
All right, Garrett, stand by for me as well, because the president appears to be taking some questions now there in the Oval Office. Let's listen in for just a bit.
We'll take questions right after that, but I think you'll get a pretty good understanding of how big it is. It's a very large deal, very big deal. And Howard, go ahead.
So the UK is the 6th largest economy in the world and the 4th largest that we export to, right? So it's a huge market, a top 10 market. If you remember Liberation Day, they were at 10% because we have balanced trade with the UK. Right? They say they have a surplus, but of course that counts gold bullion, which is, so let's just call it balanced trade. So how to open up a market in balanced trade? People think it's impossible. They've always thought it was impossible until President Trump came on the scene and changed the way things work. So here's what we've got. We've opened up new market access. Ethanol, beef, machinery, all the agricultural products. They've agreed to open their markets, and that will add $5 billion of opportunity to American exporters. So the question is, why would they do that now? Because they've never done it before, and we still have our 10% tariff on, which will produce $6 billion of revenue for the United States. So the idea was, how do they keep their jobs, protect their economy, and do the best for their people while opening the market for us? And the way is they studied it, their team was exceptional, and they tried to figure out the markets that they're importing from other people and try to send them over to America. So why were they always favoring others and not us? And what they've done is they've found the ways to do that so that we have new access, right? But the UK workers are protected, and that was the balance. So we did a deal with them in automobiles, and you know, if you're not building here, we charge you a 25% tariff. But the president, and by the way, I want to make this clear, while Jameson and I worked hard, this was the president's deal. And people think, oh, that's not the way it works. If you got to sit next to him, I have the best deal maker to my left. And if you don't think that we take advantage of him calling the prime minister and getting that deal done, you don't understand who's the president of the United States. So he's the closer. He gets deals done that we could never get done because he understands business, he understands deals, and that's why we're here today. So he agreed they could send 100,000 cars into America and only pay a 10% tariff. And that protects their car industry. And remember, we do 16 million cars a year. So this is only like 0.6%. But for the UK auto people, this is tens of thousands of jobs that the president agreed that he would protect for them. So he made that deal, right? Then steel and aluminum, right? Their steel business has been destroyed like everybody else has been destroyed by people dumping steel into their markets. And British Steel had announced it was closing down. So the British government, as part of this deal, nationalized British Steel, and they're going to match the kinds of models we do. They'll put tariffs on, they'll put quotas on. They want to do it with America so they can be part of the resurgence of steel and aluminum in America, and that saves them, again, thousands and thousands of jobs. So if you go step by step, aero and commercial planes, they sell Rolls-Royce engines to Boeing. We've agreed to let Rolls-Royce engines and those kind of plane parts to come over tariff-free. And what you're going to hear today is there's going to be an announcement at the UK that they are buying $10 billion worth of Boeing planes later today, but I'm going to let the name of the airline announce it because that's theirs to do it. Part of this deal was always to do it together and to do it strong, and you can see the numbers on this board. Everything about this board works exceptionally well for the United States of America. It lays out the plan that you can work with us in autos, you can work with us with aero and commercial, you can work with us in pharmaceuticals.
All right, there's the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, there, heaping some praise on his boss, but also adding a bit more detail to that announcement that we heard from President Trump just a few moments ago, this trade deal with the United Kingdom. Christine Romans is back with us, our business correspondent. Christine, we've got another minute or so here.
Sure.
What do you make of what we just heard from Secretary Lutnick in terms of how all of this is going to work, what it's going to mean for the United States, what it's going to mean for our British friends?
What we heard there was some give and take. You know, we heard that the U.S. is now going to be able to export more of its farm machinery and farm products and ethanol to the U.K., and the U.K. is going to be able to export 100,000 cars a year with a 10% tariff, not a 25% tariff, and that is a big concession for those U.K. automakers, which sell mostly luxury cars into the United States. It's a big job center for there. So you can see the push and pull. We're hearing about aircraft engines and aircraft. So you can see that they found a way to make a deal here that both sides can say is a win. Now they've got 18 more to go, and then maybe 100 more countries after that.
And the Secretary also promising an announcement with regards to planes being purchased from the United States as well, from Boeing. So we'll find out more about that a little bit later. Christine, thank you. Thank you as well for joining us for the special report. You can find more on our streaming channel, NBC News Now, and online at NBCnews.com. I'm Craig Melvin. This has been an NBC News special report.
No one give offers. You saw that stack of offers.